Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forge Within podcast, where we have real people telling real stories about how mental health has shaped their lives. And hopefully, together, we can start changing the stigma around mental health. So, today's episode is a heavy one, but it's also a really important one. So, today's episode, I'm joined by Marcia Bailey, who has agreed to share her lived experience of growing up under constant observation from services that were meant to protect her: social services, health professionals, police. Yet still at those times, she was experiencing repeated harm from behind closed doors. This conversation touches on childhood trauma, neglect, systematic failure, and even though there would be no in real depth graphic detail of what's happening, but some of what we talk about today will be very difficult for some people to hear. So if you need to pause, step away, or come back later, that's totally fine. So, Marcia, thank you very much for trusting us and trusting me to tell your story. And just want to start by saying, how are you today?
Okay, thank you. It's been a busy day with my granddaughter, but settled down now for this.
I've been super excited. I know we just talked about it previously for coming on. I've been super excited to
Yeah.
have you on because your story is an absolutely incredible story of survival and to look what you do now. It's I'm really looking forward to you telling your story to allow people, not just for yourself to heal, but then for others around you as well, to have an understanding of what you've been through and gain strength from
Mhm.
it as well.
Yeah.
So what I do, I just want to start before we get into your story from the off. But I want to say, is there anything that you'd like your listeners to understand about you before we start?
That sometimes I might pause because I get, how can I say, a bit of mind blank. Sometimes I think my body just wants to not talk about it, but I know that I have to talk about it, not just for myself, but to help other people too. So
No, I think that's really important when
mm,
we do these podcasts and we go through them, even though I'm quite open about talking about mental health. Sometimes it's reliving them moments again that we go through. And for us, we know that healing when we talk about it, but it's
yeah.
still at the time can be very hard to process and go through it. So yeah, I, if you are listening and there are pauses, I think it's very, very important to make sure we sit with those moments of pauses while Marcia tells her story, because it's very, very important. And I know a lot of people will be engrossed and want to listen to it as well. So here we go then. So we'll start right at the beginning. So let's start with what's your earliest memory of when and where you grew up?
My earliest memory, I think I might have been 3, 4 years old, and I lived in Netherley in Liverpool. And we were in some high-rise flats, and they were just basically put up really quick. I think they were post-war, and they were very rough, and it was always very cold there, and it was covered in graffiti, and it was just a really hard way to live, and everybody struggled, and unfortunately, there was a high rate of suicide. I can remember, um, which didn't bother me at the time because I was such a young child, but I know that people um, committed suicide off the top of the flats because that's how bad they didn't want to be living there, sort of thing. So, and yeah, it was just a really dark time, dark place to live. Um, I just my memory isn't is just cold and grey of it, and everybody's struggling, and it's just that's all I can remember. As the youngest, that's my youngest memory, my earliest memory I can think back.
Your mother and father, I'd imagine, were up in Liverpool as well. But did they meet up in Liverpool, or is any of your family Welsh?
My father is originally an Anti-Glow boy, and he joined the travelling fair in Anti-Glow, and to run away from his family, I think there was a very hard relationship between him and his father, and so he moved to Liverpool with the fair, and he went to town and he met my mother in town in a cafe. She lost her purse, and he helped her look for her purse, and he stayed there then for 11 years and had myself and my sister, and yeah, that's where they met, and they got married in Liverpool. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's incredible to me
Yeah.
to go up. and being from the traveling show, and I bet he was being in that kind of environment as well when he was younger. He would have seen things and understood
Yeah,
things differently than what we do as well.
yeah. My
Which is
father had a very difficult childhood himself, even though it was a large family. I think his father wasn't a very nice person when he was growing up. So
difficult with the flats that you talked about right at the
yeah,
beginning as well. How safe being in that kind of environment? How safe did that make you feel?
I think from from the time I could walk wherever we were, I think I look back as an adult and realise just how shut off I was from my feelings. Survival mode, I suppose you could call it. I cannot remember crying or getting upset or worrying or, it was just, you just got on with it. You just sort of got on with it. And it was just a way of life. And I suppose it was normal because that's what I was born into. We knew nothing else. Going to my, I mean, it was quite a contrast going to my grandmother's who lived in Aintree, where she had the nice house next to the race course. She had the car, she was working. My grandfather was a postmaster. To then go back to my parents was, like I say, completely, completely opposite. So I did have a taste of what was a good life going there, but then you'd always have to go back to the dark side, obviously, and living in those flats was really bad, horrendous. I can remember one time a boy, because there was nothing else to do for the children in the area, they used to climb into the lifts and go up the lift and jump out to the lift shaft for a game. But one boy, he didn't jump out the lift shaft, and unfortunately, got crushed in the lift shaft, and they didn't find him for days. So that was, and as I say, people jumping off the buildings because they were suicidal, as they saw no other way out of their life. It was just, yeah,
That's that's got to be incredibly difficult because even though sometimes we're subjected to environments like that and we're
yeah,
living in, we naturally feel unsafe. And not only that, it's, which we'll get into in a bit as well now,
mm,
if there are other children in the flats, they like
yeah,
they find activities to do as well. They all feel the same, and like doesn't sound right for kids to be running and jumping up elevator shafts and
no,
everything. That was going to be the next thing I'd say with the what kind of things, if that with those flats and that kind of situation get in with it within Liverpool. What other things did the kids do just to cope and to escape from that kind of side, or was it normalized? Because that's something we normally talk about as well, is when we're in those environments that naturally we normalize that because they just feel as if that's all we know.
yeah. The children used to play with things like cars and everything that was left by the people in the flats. Just making toys out of cars and jumping up and down cars and graffitiing everywhere. The place just stunk of urine. The local council didn't care. Um, Kids just made with whatever they had outside they'd play with, and it was very, very run down. So there was always a risk of children getting hurt or, you know, as, but I suppose it was just a way of life. That's the way they seen it. She just got on with it, you know. There was no other choice, I guess. I can remember playing in the corridors with a girl that lived next door, and she had a hamster's ball, and we used to roll the hamster up and down the up and down the corridor in the flats, you know. But it was, I'd say, very very grey memories, you know. A lot you only see in I only see in pictures now.
Yeah, well, I think it's reflecting back on as well, and normally is sometimes our mind will shut out the negative things, and we'll go into more of the negative things next about from early memories with the relationship with your mother and dad and everything, and work through that as well. But it must have been incredibly difficult when we're in that kind of environment anyway. But well, before we go to the stuff with like mom and everything, I want to talk about like the no one by services.
Yeah.
So how early did professionals become part of your life to understand like what was actually going on at home?
From my first day of birth, I went to a mother and baby hospital. My mother, I believe it may have just been not because she was neglecting me, even though she was, and she couldn't cope with me. It was because they weren't married, I think, at that time. So, yeah, we went to the mother and baby unit. and within a few days of me coming home, I was rushed back into hospital with dehydration, did very, very generally unwell, so that they were there continuously for the rest of my life then, well, up until I was 19.
Let's go. There's obviously you and your sister as well. What's the age difference between you and your sister?
There's 5 years between myself and my sister.
It's 5 years. So what we'll do, we'll go back. So we've kind of painted the scene now that we're in
Yeah,
Liverpool. We're in these flats and areas which are very, very unsafe, and a lot of things going on which they capture the moment of people struggling with mental health, lot more money, depression and everything,
yes,
which
yes, a
that
lot of
even
depression.
though you're young as well, you're not made aware of those things. It's still it's still going to be there, and then the impact that has on your family as well. So we'll go into right to the beginning of why you were known to mental health, not mental health services, why you were known to the emergency services up there as
Yeah,
well, the
yeah.
professionals and stuff. So the relationship with your mother. Do you want to talk more about the kind of stuff? I know this is going to be quite raw as well of what you've experienced, but I know that you want to talk about it.
Yeah, it was very my mother had severe mental health issues right before I was even born because he was under a psychiatrist and having ECT. Is it ECT? I can't think.
Yeah,
Electrical therapy. So,
yeah, current therapy, which is
yeah.
for anyone who doesn't know that, it's the electro nodes that are put on the side of the head and stuff. It's not really practiced as much anymore. We normally have things like
Mm,
EMDR treatment, which is for your eyes, or more CBT therapy and stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, we're going back to the 80s and early, I'm that right, going back into the early 80s and 70s.
yeah. She was very, she had a very, very, mood swing. Some days she'd have a good day, some days she'd have a bad day. I mean, my father also felt the brunt of it. Sometimes would hurt me and my sister. Um, Sometimes she was just nasty and she'd just be spitting and stuff. And then other times, like such as for Christmas, she didn't like us celebrating Christmas, and we had like lots of toys. I think might have been from my mother's side of the family, and my mother just destroyed all the toys and threw them outside. I was told I was picking the toys out of the garden after, and I'm just trying to rescue these toys, you know. But my mother was a very suffered very badly with her mental health. You know, she would take it out on us. Um, I mean, when my father was having the meetings and everything else with the professionals, one morning he came in with a clump of my hair and put it on the table and said, "This is what my wife has pulled out my daughter's hair this morning." Pulled out my daughter's head this morning, and the a meeting was done. My father had said this in the morning, and they just made notes of it and carried on to the next meeting, and that's how it went from very early on. And there were times like my father would go to work. He worked down the road in a factory, and the neighbours had called the police because they heard me screaming. And the police had actually waited for my father to come round to open the door with a key. So they went in together and found me on the sofa, covered in bruises, wrapped in a blanket. And my mother had said that I'd fallen onto the floor, onto a heavy glass ashtray, which there was no way, but they took it and I stayed there again. You know, I got rushed into A&E that night, I believe, and just checked over and sent back the next day, you know, and this happened all the time. And then it was my father checking me for bruises when he came home. And so it's very, very confusing in my mind to understand why it kept going on, you know, for the 9 years that it did. My mother she just controlled the home and she talked to her teeth. Everyone just left, you know, and she had a lot of control over her own family in that sense as well. So the health business came in, uh, and seeing us and seeing the state of the home, the home was absolutely filthy. It was always filthy. My mother never cleaned, my father never cleaned. Um, we were always full of head lice and hungry. It's just, you know, I just don't know how nothing was done. I'm talking about this now like it's somebody else, like as if it's another child, and I can't understand why adults would just let that continue. I just, it's beyond my reasoning then, I suppose.
It's really upsetting hearing
Yeah,
that you're going through that kind of process from birth, and your father going through the point of what we'd say now he was being domestically abused by your mother as well,
yeah,
to the fact of your mother having a lot of issues with her mental health and the impact that that was having on the family dynamics as well.
yeah,
But for no one to step in and to, it's a bit, it's like you wanted someone to come in and save you,
yeah,
and no one did. And
no,
that, hearing that now, and the sad reality is that your story is one of thousands,
and
thousands that'll go, because there's no way that you were singled out for the only case that they had. This must have been a growing thing that would have been happening for a very, very, very long time,
yeah, yeah,
um, with all the procedures as well. And when you look back, as I can imagine, if I was in that situation, and we'll get into that with you stuff later, that yes, time's gone on and things have changed, but it doesn't change the way that you were treated back then. And that must be so difficult, because now, if that was happening now, then they'd be taken. I would hope so. I would really, really hope so, that they will be taken out of that environment.
I have been in situations where unfortunately they can't always be taken out because of PR, because the parents, even though they've had allegations made against them, they've still got PR, and it takes a lot to remove that PR. So that child is still in a dangerous environment until they can have that PR removed.
So for the listeners, what PR means?
It's parental responsibility. So obviously the child the parents are born to, both the parents have got parental responsibility. So that is a something that can stop the social services taking the children from the home, even though they're in a risky environment. And there's evidence to say they're in a risky environment. It has to be very, very hard evidence. And unfortunately, it has to be really, really bad for them to do that, you know?
At what point do does it become enough evidence to for someone to go, actually, this is really bad now? Well, it
Exactly.
just it must be. Well, I can't imagine what it was like being in that kind of environment. And
We went from we went from Netherley. When I was in Netherley, I found out later on that my mother, because there was so many empty flats in Netherley, my mother, because it was like as if me and my sister were, what's the word, bargaining chips, I suppose, between my father and my mother, because the two of the lesser evils was my father. So I'd always run to him and go to him. And so my mother would then be very jealous and take it out on me. And she knew, I think, at the time how much my father cared about me. This was thinking of a story before my sister was born, of a time. And when we were in the Netherley flats, there was lots of empty flats. And my mother had and taken me away from my father. My father had the police out looking for me and everything. And she had boarded us up in one of the old flats that was in the high-rise flats. So we were in there for days, and if you think there's no heating in an empty flat, and we were there for days, and she usually only fed herself, so I have to think back to myself, what the hell would I been going through at that time, you know? After a few days, my father then, I think she just turned up, just come back with me, but she disappeared. And he says it was in the papers and everything, and the police were looking for me, but I've looked that up. I can't see anything.
when did
It's good.
things change? When so you were 5 years of age when your your sister was
Yes,
born
yeah,
into that world, knowing that everything you've done before, the reports that have been gathered in regards of the abuse and the neglect and everything.
yeah.
When your sister come into the picture, was there any other investigations in regards of was your mother fit to be in that scenario?
No, no. It continued as normal. She, from my side anyway, what happened behind with the services, obviously I don't know, but um, from my side, nothing changed. It was the same. So, um, we went from Netherley in the flats and then we moved into Norris Green, uh, which is another estate in Liverpool. And her abuse just seemed to get worse. Like I didn't realise until later on that she was doing it to my sister, and she was only 3 when we would have been 3 when we moved up from Liverpool. I mean, I thought it was just me, you know? But I mean, my mother used to just sting me with a cigarette and just spit at me and threaten me and things, but I found out later on that she was doing it to my sister as well.
That's horrific. So, how long? So, from your childhood, from your birth, you're up in Liverpool. Just trying to timeline everything as well now. So, was you still you were living in the flats where you were born? And
Yeah.
did you see move from the flats?
Yeah, we moved from the flats. I think that was because my mother was pregnant with my sister, so we were given a 3-bedroom house, I think it was. And we moved into Norris Green, and it was quite rough at that time. You know, there'd be shootings and everything else, and drug wars, and you'd have to be very careful. Little children couldn't really play out on the street in case they got hurt. This all paled in significance for me. It didn't bother me because, sorry.
No, you take your time. I know this is emotional as well.
Well, all that was happening outside was paled into significance in the home. So
Yeah, the thing is, it just kind of shows the kind of environment that you were in, and then going from that environment into another really unsafe environment that a lot of people, when they went in, they wouldn't want to be in. With they've said, with the violence going round in the area with other families and on the streets and everything. But I
yeah,
think that just kind of understands how normalized the situation was for you. That you which is so worrying to you.
but we were when we were in the old flats. I think a brick came through the window because it was riots. Is like people fighting and stuff. Sometimes I think it was quiet, but then when it kicked off, it really kicked off. Um, I know brick came through the window once. So I can't remember the violence outside scaring me. It didn't. I mean, we even had the uh Toxteth riots. I mean, I think I'd have been about 5 at the time, and I can remember my father taking me in the pram, and just they had to board the shops up and put bread and milk in the shops, but they'd have to board them up and lay you in, see who you are, and lay you in case you're somebody that wants to, do some damage. I I remember them opening the bolts up on the shop and going in, and we had to have the bread and milk, and then I come back out in the pram, and then I can remember the riots kicking off, but they were using petrol bombs, and they were the police on the horses and the big bulletproof shields, and it was the black community against the police. And I remember the black community throwing petrol bombs at the horses, and just I don't think I was scared. I remember my father walking me walking me through things like this happening, and I think to myself now, why wouldn't you avoid? Why would you walk your child through that? Would it be because he had to get bread and milk, or I'm not sure. I don't know, but he's got dementia now, so I've never been able to ask him. Yeah, it's crazy though, Sam, because again, that didn't scare me. It was what was going inside the home. There was my problem, what I had to fight.
So you would have been 5 when you moved then
Yeah,
up to the
Norris
flats
Green,
then up in
out of
Norwich
flat.
Green.
Yeah.
How long then? So we've got more episodes of abuse, as you just said, with the cigarette out in and the abuse carried
Yeah,
on to you, and then that being carried on to your sister as
my
well.
sister,
Then,
yeah.
till what age did that continue?
Until my father took me away. There was always always something going on. I think to myself now, how I survived that part of my childhood, I just don't know. My sister, particularly because she was small and she had things like whooping cough and all other sorts of conditions, which my mother wouldn't take us to hospital for. It was just like a case of stop whinging and just get on with it. My father would, if we complained to him, but then sometimes he was gone. So, and then like I say, he'd check us for bruises when he come home, and then there was just times when like I say, there's been a recorded 7 times that my mother told the social services she was going to kill the both of us, and she attempted to kill the both of us numerous times. Sometimes when I was younger, sometime it was that she'd tried to choke me with SMA. She didn't, with the baby milk. I was choking and my father ran in because she just sat there and let me choke on his baby milk. She didn't She made no attempt to stop me choking then, I suppose. But luckily my father came in and he sort of did what he had to do to help me to breathe again. There was times where she would I would sit on my father's lap, and then for sitting on my father's lap in the day, she'd give me an hiding later on for that because she had a very jealous she was more like a jealous sister than a parent, you know? It wasn't I was a parent from the time I could walk, I suppose, really, and especially with Lisa. I was protective to the stage that I could possibly be protective at that age then, because you don't always see what you're supposed to be protecting children from at that age, do you?
I'm as you're talking about it now, I'm going through what I would be like in situations.
Yeah.
Look at my children and I've got 2 older ones. One's 18 and one's 21, but my boy's 11. And still thinking, I know, like my 11, and that would be 2 years older than what you would have been when you left the house.
Yeah,
Trying to be that, don't bully my sister and sticking up for your sister and trying to take it, then that's, an incredible amount of a pressure to put on your shoulders whilst you're being physically, mentally, emotionally abused at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah. It was like my mother was like I was handling someone that hadn't been diagnosed, hadn't been, I don't know. I was left with this person to manage from birth, you know? And so was my father as well. So, I mean, he had the abuse as well. One time, I believe my father drank at the time more than he said he did. He came to the house drunk one time, and my mother wouldn't let him in. So I went to open the bay window in the front, and she said no, shouted at me, "Don't let him in." So I then run round the back and unlocked the back door for him. My mother dragged me back in by the hair and said, "I told you you'd stop sticking up for your father." And then she went into the back kitchen to lock the door, so I opened the bay window again in the front room, and my father crawled in. So, and my mother just came out of the kitchen with a glass bottle in her hand, and she just smashed it straight over his head. And I can remember him trying to look like it didn't hurt because I was there. Do you know what I mean? So, I was mopping his blood up, and then she was just on some sort of raving mad moment. And I don't know what happened after that. I just remember that cleaning my father's blood up off his head. I mean, the social services reports, which I got to read later on, uh, said that, you know, June was very volatile towards Billy. Um, and Marcia was like a slave. Marcia was a slave to her mother. Lisa was always unwell. Um, Children always covered in bruises and unkempt. Just many, many things. And it said in there, as I said earlier, I repeat again, sorry, it's 7 recorded times that she said she was going to kill us. She attempted to when I was a very small child, I think, to kill me with a knife, I think. Just put a knife into me like just take me like that, but my father again stopped her. So, and she'd always say things to me through her teeth, like, she wanted a boy, she didn't want us, she wants us dead. If we wasn't here, she'd have a life, and things like that. And of course, as I got older, I got cheekier then, more stand up to her more sort of thing. So
There would have to be times where you toughen up, and then we talk about nature and nurture, and
yeah,
when you're born in that kind of environment, you're like a blank canvas. But if you are around that volatile situation for a while,
yeah,
periods of what you learn from your parents and peers, they rub off on us in ways that maybe not as violent as them, but it's the only way that you can manage to survive.
survive. Yeah,
Your brain's an incredible organ, and how we adapt to situations, and to be in that volatile situation for that a period of time. And I'm absolutely, even for there to be social worker reports now to look back and for you to read, I'm absolutely sick to the stomach to think that not one human being during that time didn't work their absolute arse off to get you out of that scenario, and think that there's no situation or period where you should have been allowed to stay there with someone where it's been recorded 7 times tried to take your life and abuse you and abuse your sister. That is just disgusting. In the what would have happened if one of you tragically died as a result of that? Then there would have been a massive inquest and
yeah.
report, and then
Lessons have been there.
just lessons being put. But why has it got to get to that stage for a child to lose their life? And we see it now with even
Yeah,
in
baby
modern day
P.
society where baby P, all these things. Why aren't we picking up on those lessons earlier? And these are only the ones we know about.
I know, exactly. I mean, I don't get too much into it, Sam, because, sorry, when I see the reports now, I think nothing's changed. I can't say more.
And that's the horrid scenario of it, is being let down to that degree where you have suffered as a result of it. And I think the only empowering thing as we move through the story now from this period of time is where you are now, and the amazing mother you are to your children, and what you are doing now for communities
Yeah,
here in Blaenau Gwent just shows that even though we go through the hardest of times, it is still possible to come out the other end and become that version that you never knew that you could ever be.
yeah,
And I knew that by when we spoke previously about this, before coming on the podcast, I knew that this episode would be very emotive and distressing in a lot of ways. But
yeah,
every time you speak and the more you go into it, the more it reinforces the message to me that you're an absolutely incredibly strong person to get through this. Incredibly, I mean that wholeheartedly. So at the age of 9, then you move back. What happens then?
Before I moved, let's say, it got worse. And then it was just, could it get worse? I don't know if it got worse. Um, my family, I couldn't understand. Can't to this day understand why my family didn't take me away, because they were scared of my mother. So how did they think that? Sorry to backtrack. Um, so how did they think me and my sister felt? The thing is, they were good family to me when I was there. I mean, at one point, my auntie was advised by the social services, or told by the social services, that she'd have to bath me on a Tuesday because my mother tried to drown me. So, and that was because I wouldn't get a shampoo out my hair. Luckily, my father again came in, kicked the door in, and pulled me out of the water and rushed me to hospital because she'd nearly done it, you know. Why was my Auntie Sharon was asked, and my nan would have known, they was asked to bath me. So why would they allow me to go back if they have to bath me because she's going to drown me, you know?
The only thing that I could come up with in that is regards of fear. Were they scared of the fact of your mother? And your mother sounds back then, she sounded like a very, very vicious character
yeah,
who was very unpredictable and was battling a lot of mental health issues as well.
possibly, yeah,
What they would be in modern day society, I'm not qualified enough
yeah,
to diagnose and say what they could be. They would all be speculation, but
yeah,
there are signs there that she was using you and your sister and your father as ways of expressing herself in a negative way. And
yeah.
unfortunately, all three of you were caught in the firing line.
The worst it was for my sister was because she had learning disability, so she never spoke up, and so I'd speak for her, and that's where me and my mother. I read in the notes again that we had whip marks on our hips, and I thought, and that was the first time I found out my sister was being hit as well. I didn't realise was being abused. She had whip marks, linear marks as they called them on her hips, and so did I. But then it was a failure because my mother was in a psychiatrist long before I was born. So
There's an awful lot of the story so far that
yeah,
that just signals. I know that you've got upset about it just now,
yeah,
and it just signals the distressing image of this is a scenario where luckily you were taken from that environment. And I know we're going to, even though sometimes it was bad up there and it got worse when you come back home.
I did, yeah,
But this is a situation where it should have been taken out of the hands of the parents and the family. It should have been picked up by health professionals, a psychologist
yeah,
who
yeah.
was hearing about these. Unless your mother was very, very clever at disguising this to a psychologist, I don't know.
Even though she had problems herself, she was very manipulative. But she actually told the social workers direct that she was going to kill us. She told them, and I was seen as a child psychiatrist, and they were getting me to draw pictures because I was peeing myself in school all the time. I remember being pulled because I was in a school of nuns. The nuns were our teachers, and they were very strict. And I can remember being taken into the side office and being scolded terrible. Your mother's coming. No, your mother's coming. Read yourself again. I just kept weeing myself, and I was getting punished in school for weeing myself, and punished in school for my mother for weeing myself. And then the psychiatrist was there because I was weeing myself and playing up. So it's like, hello,
I hope that people from those scenarios in government and from higher, and this is why I really want to do this episode, I hope there's people in higher establishments that get to listen to this and hear about the absolute betrayal that you have done to yourself and your sister, and should be utterly embarrassed, utterly ashamed,
yeah,
because as a result of that, and we talk on this podcast about how our mental health has shaped our lives. For you,
yeah,
from a very young age, mental health was shaped for you by the impact and of your unwell mother who was suffering with mental health issues. So there's a systematic failure here, a
yeah.
massive systematic failure of injustice that has luckily resulted in both you and your sister being alive, but the damage is astronomical.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. That's why I keep busy, Sam, and that's why I'm glad I've got a job I've got today, because helping other people helps me. I mean, when I was back in home with my mother, and it was in terms of food, I can buy my own food now, and my auntie Sharon used to work in the sausage factory, and she'd bring sausages home to my mother, but we never ate. She'd never cook a meal. So I'd be eating raw sausages. I get the sausages and my auntie Sharon brought round, and I'd be eating raw sausages, and I did that for years after. I didn't realise it wasn't normal, eating raw sausages, and that's why it was full of worms as well, so worms, so I didn't know.
Your mother's family then, obviously, they didn't step in to
No.
take over the reins, but I'm assuming your father got to the point where he realised that I should have realised an awful long time before that. But again, if he's in a scenario where he's been domestically abused,
Yeah,
and I've had experience within my family of that as well, I understand the strain that puts on people.
yeah.
When did he get the point where he said, right, this is enough, we're off?
I like to think it was for us, Sam, but I don't know if it was more for him at that point. And my grandmother always said to me, your father saved your life, he took you away from Liverpool. If it wasn't for your father, he wouldn't be here. I had this drummed into me. But I sort of battle with myself because I think my dad's got some sort of mental health issues as well. And he was a heavy drinker and is still, well, gave up 10 years ago. But I think he had a battle with himself as well. My father did. I'm not wholeheartedly sure that he came back just for us. Just for us. I think it got to a point where he didn't want to be with her anymore. So he kept saying to me it was because the social services gave him a choice between me and my sister or my mother. And I'm thinking, what, after 9 years, I have been in a situation where, not that my child was going to be threatened, but I was threatened in front of my child, and that was enough for me. I was enough. I can't even imagine my children going through even an iota of what me and my sister went through, and me standing there and then allowing it to happen. It just wouldn't happen.
You're 9 years of age?
Coming up 9, I think I was.
And so what happened?
My mother, we walked out the door. I think my sister was already in Wales. My father had taken her up first. And my mother was on the door and my dad said, we're leaving. My dad said, we're leaving. And she said, you're not going, don't go, don't leave me, Billy. Started shouting and crying and everything else. I remember holding on to my father's hand and my mother was saying, Mars, don't leave me, don't leave me. And I said, I can't, Dad's got my hand. But really, it was me that was holding my father's hand, holding on tight, thinking, please, God, just take me away from this woman, you know? And I remember just going on the coach with my dad and feeling so happy that we was leaving her. But I didn't want to leave Liverpool. I still miss Liverpool now. It wasn't the city that I hated, it was the situation. But I had no choice. And I came back down here and the whole new hell started. So, yeah.
Out to the frying pan and into the fire.
Yeah.
Was that the last contact with your mother then?
No, I've seen her a few times since then. So
Yeah. Okay, we'll get into
yeah,
that. So we've left it 9. Your sister now is back. You're out of that situation with your mother where we've got that
yeah,
heavy use of abuse and stuff. You've come back now into Nantiglow. For those people who don't know where Nantiglow is a small town which is based in Blaenau Gwent Borough in
yeah.
South Wales. So you've got back to Nantiglow. What's happening now?
So we've turned up in Antigua. I've met all my new family. Very scary for me and my sister. I think we're like aliens, you know, because there wasn't very many people with different accents in Antigua at that time. So I think they were just gathered around us and like, I felt like I was in a circus, you know. I can remember the day we turned up at the house, and they were all just staring at us, asking questions and things, and there's about 7 of them. I think my dad's one of 7. Was he one of 8? And yeah, they were all sharing the house, and so me and my sister had to share the rooms upstairs until my father got home. And you know, my nan had all these little valley houses on the Garn in Antiglow. We all shared the rooms, and obviously I'm sharing the house with this bunch of strangers that I don't know. I think my uncles and auntie came up to Liverpool once or twice to visit Dad, but other than that, I didn't know them. Nan I'd never met, from what I can recall anyway. My grandmother, my father's mother. And then we managed to get a house up in the Quaker, just a bit further up. And I think everybody gathered around, got us beds and things like that. And we were still staying in Nan's. And one night, we had a phone call to say that the house had gone. It'd blown up. So the Rayburn, obviously the old pipes would get icy.
Yeah.
And it was all icy, and the house hadn't been used for a while. The pressure built up, and it just took the whole house out. So, yeah, we had to start again there. Everything was fine first. My nan got me a uniform for the local school. and I made lots of friends, and people were interested in me because of my Scouse accent. They'd get me to say things in school and stuff just for their entertainment, and I had some good friends in that school, which I still do. I still talk to now. They're still nice people. Um, Maybe a few that aren't, which I won't mention. But yeah, so then we went from the house in Atley Road and we moved over to a place called Winchestown.
Yeah.
And that was like, we had nothing. We absolutely had absolutely nothing. No carpets, no curtains. Dad was always in the pub. I can remember at that time, uh, there was a man living opposite us, and I believe he was on heroin. He had a heroin addiction,
Yeah.
and my father left me and my sister with him to tell him that he was going to London. So I can remember me and my sister staying in this flat with this man, and there was men coming back and forth, and they were playing cards, and there was a bed set. So me and my sister were in the corner in a bed with all these men on the floor playing cards, and they were smoking or whatever else they were doing. And Dad had just left us with nothing. And of course, because these men were there, I'd make sure my sister is towards the wall so I can see the men, not her. So if anyone comes near her, sort of thing, then I'm the first one they come to. If that makes any sense. And then Dad didn't come back for 2 or 3 days, and I think this guy called the social services, said, look, Mr. Bailey's gone off and left his daughters. They haven't got anything. And fair play to him for calling social services, I think, even though he was obviously in a state himself with what was going on. So social services came out, checked us over, said, if Mr. Bailey isn't back in 2 days, please call us again. So we stayed there again with a few hours. Of course, my sister, shouldn't even be in a place like that anyway, with her mental health condition. And so 2 days later, they came and picked us up and took us to the nearby home in Coed, which is another story.
You've
Yeah,
gone from an horrific incident up there on the flats,
yeah,
just to paint a storyline. The horrific time was past but there was a lot of suicides, there was a lot of deprivation. Your mother was beating you horrifically, moving up there to another place and seeing the riots, and then being taken then from your mother, which was you thought at the time was hell,
yeah,
being brought down with, and this imagination of this is going to be the best thing. I'm away from mum, feeling safe, to in a very, very short period of time, even though you gained friends, new school, the reality was that you didn't escape the situation. So how old was you when again the social services come in?
they was there all the time. It was there the whole time. They were still coming to see us every week, but I think the guy that was on the heroin, who was looking after us, he called them because he was concerned that Dad hadn't been
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
So so we went to the care home, and then my sister was obviously recognised for having a mental health condition at that time. I can remember turning up. I can still remember turning up, and we hadn't eaten for days, which was the usual. And it must have been late in the night, and they did us a bowl of soup and bread, and it was like getting to eat, So um, sorry, just
No,
um,
please don't say sorry, because I know that what you are doing today is incredibly brave to come on, and we did speak and say, look, you sure did want to come on and talk about your story, and you really wanted
yeah,
to come on and tell your story, because you feel that getting it out there allows you to process it more. Even though social services were there throughout, they've now taken you from the place where your
yeah.
father dropped you off with this heroin addict, and you've gone into a home again. How old was you when that happened?
I think around 11. I
Around
would have been at that
11.
time. Mm. So suffering. I don't know whether it's because she was in a safer environment, or she felt safer in our environment. That was when her mental health started to get worse. And of course, when relax, you're yourself sort of thing, you become yourself sort of thing when you relax, So she was a lot more playful, but obviously still having her issues. And they kept her there and they sent me back to the same place. So they just took me back. And then what happened? Lisa was put into a home next to the care home to monitor her needs and for her to be in a good school that's suitable for her needs then, which was one next door to the home. And she then was sent back to my father. So then we was living in the Witches and we were in another flat again. We had moved a couple of times, but we lived in a house up in Pantview at the top of the Piker. And my family lived down the road. There was my nan, her sisters, his sisters, dad's sisters even. Oh God. Dad's sisters, my nan. There was quite a few of the family, but they never come to the home. And the home was just absolutely filthy. I remember my mother coming to visit us there up in the Quaker, the top of the Quaker. And I remember her standing on the door. And like one of these doors was like the glass is some of it's see-through and then some of it's not, like the panels. And
Yeah.
I can still see her feet and her heels in the bottom panel you could see through. And I knew it was her because she was tapping her feet, tapping her heels. I knew it was her. But I couldn't see the top half of her because of the way the glass was set up.
Mm.
And I knew she was knocking. And I just thought, no. I just went up the stairs. I didn't answer. And I hadn't seen her at this point for a long time. And but anyway, I didn't see her after. I think I just kept running away from wherever she was, sort of thing.
Yeah.
She must come to visit the family. And they were all scared of her as well. I think my father's family was scared of my mother. They never say anything to her. They just take it out on me, I think. But in that house, we had a lot of damp rot. So we were upstairs in the toilet. It was wood and it had fallen through because of the rot. So there was a hole and you could see right down to the kitchen, but you couldn't get to the bath because of the rot. So we couldn't use the toilet either. The setup of an average bathroom, toilet in front of you, bath on the right, a small one. There was a big hole in the floor and it was looking down into the kitchen. So we'd have to wee outside in the shed because we couldn't get to the toilet. So my sister would just wee herself where she was, obviously, because of her problem. So yeah, it was just absolutely filthy house, filthy. I tried to do myself a cup of tea once. We didn't have a kettle, and I had a saucepan, and I tipped the water, because it's a wide tip then, isn't it? It's a saucepan.
Mm.
So it went all over my thumb, and I burnt all my hand. And there was just empty glass bottles on the fridge full of mould. It was just no carpet. The sofa was full of urine because my sister would just wee herself where she was, The bed upstairs, it was just floorboard. Me and my sister would share a bed. And I'd have to keep moving around the bed because you'd have to wait for the bed to dry so you could sleep on a dry patch. And there was just a blanket in the window. And I can remember one night on New Year's Eve sitting outside at 12 o'clock in the night, and it was New Year's Eve. My sister must have been down my grandmother's. And I remember everybody celebrating. And Dad must have been in the pub, I think, again. And just sitting there in the dark at 12 o'clock on New Year's night. So, and there was no electric, and it was just a mess,
It sounds really horrific because
Yeah.
you've gone from a really bad situation into another really bad situation, and it hasn't worked. So this kind of level of being let down by the services, being let down by, again, your father, the situations as well, and your mother, Well, this went on for how long? Did all this go on back to an anti-glow?
But it was an anti-glow, and then it was Winches and Quaker is in anti-glow. They're both in anti-glow.
Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
gone from Winches to the Quaker, from the Quaker to the Winches, from Winches to the Quaker. So
Constantly moving around.
Dad just used to didn't pay the rent and just left all our stuff there. That's what we went. So we went to the Winches, and the last place going off before I moved away from the home. I lived in Winches Town, and we lived in a flat, and there was holes in the windows. We didn't have a key. There'd be like a little, the coal sheds at the side of the door. We'd have one of them at the side, and you reach your hand in there and just open the front door like that. So, or I climb in the window, and it was just, my dad would get a carpet, and then that was ruined. So he put a carpet on top of that. And then sometimes we'd have a TV and sometimes we wouldn't, because Dad would buy a TV and then he'd sell it for a couple of pints the next week. We had a washing machine bought for us. Dad swapped it for a motorbike. Things like the electric would go, and so me and my sister would be sat there in the dark, and we wouldn't have nothing to eat, so only bread. So I'd get a knife and put it up against the fire to cook a piece of toast for me and my sister. And that was our entertainment, burning things by the fire, because the gas was gone, the electric was gone. So, and there was times where, as I got older then, I didn't want to come home, only for Lisa, because she was always staying at my nan's, where they weren't very nice to her either because of her mental health. The sisters weren't very nice, or the one sister. And I was sleeping rough because I didn't want to go back. And when I did come back, there was no electric and no food, no gas. So sometimes I'd be lucky. I'd stay rough in Ebervale. Sometimes I'd be lucky to get enough for a bar of chocolate. And then I'd wash my face in the toilet. And then I'd walk over Ebervale Mountain to school to get my dinner. But then when I was in school, I was getting bullied because I was stinking. So, do you know what I mean? It's like, which way to turn, isn't it? So,
yeah, it's just
no way to turn. So,
it's just such a. I don't swear much in this podcast, but I can swear now. It's such a fuck up.
Yeah.
Right? I'll reiterate that it is such an utter complete fuck up.
Yeah.
From services to there's so many signs. Like everything we've spoke about are literally alarm bells ringing. Something is wrong. Something needs to happen. Yet nothing is being. It's totally beyond. And this is why you're so. As we go through the episode, you're thinking, "Oh, this is just so deep, and there's so much going on." But to think that you're stood here now and giving people a voice to people who've been in that kind of situation, and if there is anyone who's been through this, and I would imagine if you have been through a lot of the things that Marcia has been through, I'd imagine that you are very emotional in the background as well, as I have been. I found this episode so far very, very challenging, because it's things that I wouldn't want to go through, and I wouldn't want my children to go through, and it makes me angry and upset that someone did go through this and others continuing to do so as well. But hearing your story today gives them the strength that even though as we go on through now, I know that we're just coming to the end now of that period where you were obviously sleeping rough, and then you get the point where you're old enough to move, and when you go into that, you go into another situation which was really bad for you as well. But that's actually really good. That's actually a really good spot to start. So all this now in regards of the stuff with the mental health, the stuff with the abuse, the stuff that was going home, the neglect, which is a big thing that was happening back here, and the failure of the service. At what age did you decide that all this is enough and I'm just leaving the house. I need to go and create my own life and just leave?
Um, what stopped me, Sam, was my sister. That's why I didn't go earlier. And I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know there was another world out there. I just thought this was the world, you know? At one point when I was 13, my auntie in Barry, I went up there for a holiday with her, my dad's sister, and she tried to adopt me, but the social services wouldn't have it. I don't know why. I don't know what was the reason. She then tried to have my sister. They wouldn't let her out, this was a good environment from what I could see. She was feeding us. She was going to get us uniforms to go to school. We were happy. It was a normal family life. Yet the social services stuck by my dad. I don't know why. So I came back anyway, and for about months and months later, I was trying to get money for a train fare to go back to Barry, and I couldn't find it. So then, apparently, if it was seen that I was going to my auntie's myself and not her taking me, then so I'd have to get a train and go to Barry to social services how much I wanted to be there. Even when my father took me from Auntie Anne's, I locked myself in the toilet when he said he was going to take me. And he said, I'll take you to the fair, I'll take you to Barry Fair. And I thought, oh, yeah, I'll go to the fair. So opened the door, got in the car. My uncle was in the front, my dad's in the passenger seat. There's the fair. We go past the fair. I said, Dad, the fair's down there. Didn't answer me. That was it. I started kicking the shit out of the back of the seats. I said, take me back to Barry, take me back to Barry. I don't want to go home, I don't want to go home. I was screaming, crying. And he took me back. And he put me back in the place where I left. And I can never understand. And unfortunately, I was told, he never actually told me himself, but he wouldn't have had any money if he didn't have me and my sister. You know, which is one more factor. But I like to sort of tell myself that that's not true, but I heard it a few times. So, and then it got to the stage where I was robbing the book, the doll. I was pinching the gyros. Then my dad would get through the door. I'd go and cash them at the shop, buy loads of food with them, and then get loads of food for me and my sister before Dad gets up and goes to spend it all on alcohol. And I used to hate the pubs, Sam. I hated them because they were taking mine and my sister's food money, you know?
Mm.
That's how I seen it when I was a kid. Obviously, it's not right, but, you know. But one time I went to social services as well, and I said, me and my sister haven't eaten for 4 days. At this point, my nails had fallen out 3 times. It grew back and fell out 3 times because of malnutrition. And I said to the services, me and my sister are hungry. So they took me to Quick Save, got me a crate of food, took it home. Local kids nicked half of it anyway, as they did usually. They break in and nick whatever was there. And then, yeah, just the ask of, just the going to the social services and asking them for food. It's like, hello, this kid's coming to ask you for food. They haven't eaten for 3 days, you know? It's like, I say 3 days, but that's just off the top of my head, you know? But it's, and then it was all this going on, and I thought, how am I going to get my sister out here? How am I going to get my sister out here? That's what I was thinking. And I remember working in a factory just down the road. And funny enough, even though that flat was absolutely filthy dirty, I had family nearby. I don't know where they were. I don't know what they were doing. I say family. I don't, you know. Family is family to me, people that help you, but, you know.
Before, just so we can get the picture clear again. So you've come back again. We come back from Liverpool 11
Yeah.
years of age. Then everything started happening. Discontinued then for these situations with,
Yeah,
again, the abuse, the services being pushed back out, being put back in, your sister then going to the home and then being put
yeah.
back in the home with yourself and everything. How long did all this go on for? So people who are listening can get an idea of the time scale in regards
Probably
of.
about up until until just past my 16th birthday, which is when I left.
So it would have been five. It would have been 5 years. Well,
Mm,
you come back 9, but from the age of 9, I'd say you had like a year and a half where things seemed a bit better. So from 11 to 16, all everything that we spoke to about all that happened in that period of time, which is, to me, that's just.
yeah, it wasn't that period between 9 and 11 wasn't good. It was just none of it was ever good, and that's not me trying to.
No, no, no,
None
no,
of
no,
it
no.
was ever good, you know. It was
Yeah, but that's
there's
compared to yeah, there's just so much trauma
so much
going
to
on.
highlight. I
No,
can't,
no,
you
and
know. Yeah,
I think what happens then is that there are periods there where, to everyone listening who hasn't been in them, that would be horrific. But to
yeah,
you, it was like a normalized kind of
yeah,
situation because it was what you're used to. And if you went from a situation up in Liverpool, which was horrendous, when you come back, anything would have been better than what you've been
oh
up
yeah,
there.
definitely.
So by having friends, just by having family who kind of talk to you and everything, that would have felt like being in a totally different world. But there were probably things going on there that behind the scenes that
Yeah,
were getting worse. Then everything was amplified then massively when, again, your father left you and then services were brought back involved. And
mm,
what we got as well, once you're about 11 years of age, you start then, you not only know more about yourself, but you've got a bit more sense then around your environment, but what's going on, what's
yeah,
wrong, what's right. You start looking at other families, you compare yourself to people
yeah,
in school back in Wales and think, well, why am my life like that? Why am my dad like that? Why are other people living like this? Why haven't I got any money? And then it's that like internal and external, I suppose. Like
yeah,
look at people to try and say, well, I'm different to them.
yeah. There was not. Yeah, that's what it was. As I got older, I started to think, hang on, why? How are they doing that? And I was doing this sort of thing, you know. And it's like I've sat with friends, and thank God I have met friends that have helped me to be a different parent to what I was. So I picked tips up of different people around me.
Yeah.
And working in hospitals for years helped as well because of caring and, you know, uh, looking after people and things and having to be considerate about this, that, and the other. And, you know, that taught me that side of things. But when I left when I was 16, because I think it was a couple of days before I was in Vale, and these girls, for no reason at all, just because, you know, kids are like, one boy fancied me. I didn't like him, but the local boys liked me because I was a new girl around, and 4 or 5 girls approached me one time and said they're going to beat me up. But I had my little sister with me, and so I said to my sister, Lisa, go and get dad, because I knew he was in the pub down the road. I said, run down to the county and go with dad. 'Cause I didn't want to to watch me getting beat up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she run, and I just thought, fuck it. And I just let it and took a beating, you know. And I remember my dad coming up just after I finished. I couldn't see because they were jumping on my head. And I said, Dad, what's going on? I heard car doors slamming. These girls just got in the car and drove off. Like, and I walked through town with Dad. I had concussion for a couple of days. And the social services said to Billy, why didn't you take Marcia to hospital? He said, I did, but she didn't want to go, which is absolute rubbish. She didn't ask me if I wanted to go to the hospital, which, again, if it was my child, I'd have taken them anyway, you know? Um, but yeah, that was it. I think that was it around then when I really started to realise how much I wasn't cared for. And there wasn't one solid person in my life, Sam, or one. Everyone had something or did something wrong, you know? They were after something or they did something wrong. And some of the times when I walked from Ebervale over the mountain to the Winches, there'd be other things that happened. I mean, I was vulnerable, and I remember walking home with a guy one night, and he said he brought me home, but he forced himself upon me on the way home. Luckily I managed to fight, and I remember just running over the mountain, um, and getting home, and that happened to me twice. Twice that happened to me. One was it happened, but I got away, and the other, it didn't happen because I got away just before, you know? I don't wanna go
Yeah.
into detail, but you
No,
know
you
what I
don't.
mean? Boy
No,
walked me
don't go
home,
in. Okay. Y-
tries
Yeah,
to force me, you know?
yeah, yeah.
But and I remember telling my dad, and he just didn't give a toss. And I didn't tell my family because I knew they wouldn't give a toss either, and I thought, "I gotta get out here, I gotta get my sister out here." And, so I met a boy and there was painting the factory just down the road, and I started talking to him, and he lived in Abergavenny, he had a room free. I thought he was nice at the time, as you do, and, I got a bus to Abergavenny and I didn't come back. And the first thing I did was get on the phone to social services to get Lisa out there. And what they did is they made her a dentist appointment. And she had a dentist appointment. And I knew that they were taking her out the back. So Dad was sitting there with me. I was with him. And he said, "Well, wait, Lisa's been in there a while." He's saying, "She's been there a while, hasn't she? And, hope everything's right and such have you." Well, they taken her out the back, and they. So I was quite happy. I knew she was safe. She'd gone with social services. Within a few months, I found out that she'd gone back to my nan, my father's mother. So her mental health went downhill. Um, my dad's sisters were cruel to her, nasty to her about her mental health. She was in a state of her personal hygiene was horrendous. She was still weeing herself. She was doing abnormal things, and people would like she'd take her clothes off anyway and things like that. And people would be gossiping. They wouldn't help Sam. They'd go, "Oh yeah, that's it. She takes her clothes off, or she's backwards. She is. She's slow. Oh, love her. She's not it. No, just nasty instead of helping.
Just cruel.
Local gossip. That's all she was. And so thank God, what had happened. Well, I say thank God. What had happened is she hated my auntie. I think she flipped one night. She jumped out of the window. I believe with a knife in her nightie and said she was going to go and kill my auntie. And that was when they came and took her and assessed her, and she was under section for a while, but she's now in a home where they couldn't look after her any better than they do. They're absolutely amazing with her. They have been from start until now, so thank God. She's had a few blips on
Oh,
the way because she's at the mental health medication has stopped working now and again because she's got schizophrenia, you see.
yeah.
So, but in general, she's well looked after now, and the home that she's in, they're like her family. They're really good with her. So,
So you at the age of 16 and as well have made that phone call. You've left. You've made that phone call.
mm,
They've gone.
mm,
They've gone in. Then the dentist appointment, assessed her, taken her out. She's gone back. At the same time, now you were still living in Abergavenny now with this
yeah,
gentleman.
yeah,
What happened then? So I know we've gone through it in regards of like where your sister is now and how that happened, but we'll just rewind it back a bit and go into where you were at the age of 16. So you've left that kind of environment. You're 16 years of age. You've gone to Abergavenny.
yeah.
You thought, right, I'm away from all that now. Was that all? Is that a happy new start to you, or?
No, I was with this guy and he seemed to be all right. He was working and he was nice to me. And then I started hearing things because it wasn't from Abergavenny that he's, you know, um, not a very nice person. And I'm thinking at the time, well, he's nice to me. So
Yeah.
then I discovered slowly that he was started taking drugs. Um, Now I have been brought up around drugs. When I was in my teens, someone gave me a pipe and told me it was just smoke, but it was crack. So uh, I didn't even know until I was older that I'd had crack. So um, there was drugs and alcohol all around me. But thank God it scared me. I didn't like it. I don't know
Yeah.
how, because I have seen so much when it comes to drugs and alcohol. Now, boy, ruins people, which is again another story. So yeah, and he just started to smoke weed first, and it was out of the home. So I thought, okay, if you want to do that, it's up to you. But then he started to drink, and then he started to become nasty. Um, we got a flat together. He had to have the name on the flat because I was only 17 and he was 19. And so I did the flat up, and I eventually realised I didn't want to be with him. But at this around this time, I'd got pregnant with my oldest daughter, um, which I thought was going to be absolutely fantastic, which she is now, and I wouldn't take her back. Of course, I wouldn't. But it was hard. It was really hard. But then I showed him that I didn't want to be with him. I told him, and that was when he started to turn quite just nasty, just horrible. He used to throw ornaments at me. Um, just we got into fights all the time. But I'd stand my ground, And then I found out I was carrying again, so I had two children with him when I was 17 and 18. I think I'm at 16 and 18. And again, I just thought it was fantastic at the time. Um, Looking back now, I think, my God, what was you doing, kid? But
Yeah.
18 years old, he believed that it was somebody else's child, so he threw me out. So I was in a homeless place then, nearby. Went to a homeless place. I didn't have nothing, so social services helped me to get a few things. Because I was officially off the register then when I was 19. Um, so they got me a load of stuff, and I stayed in the homeless place with uh, my daughter, and I was carrying my boy at the time. That's right, yeah. And then I went to a women's refuge. I was in a women's refuge for a good few months, and we were okay. And then I got my own house, a big house, but of course I didn't have any money, so I couldn't put nothing in it. It was this lovely big house with nothing in it. I think everybody thought in the local area that it was my parents' house, because I think I looked about 12 when I was 19. So um, yeah, I struggled then, terrible. I had no money for food for the kids, but luckily the kids' grandmother helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I used to take the kids to hers for food and things, and then I started working as a cleaner. So I was doing a bit better off, and they spent a lot of time with their nans at that time because I just couldn't cope. I couldn't feed them. So um yeah, and then later on I got into another relationship which wasn't the best either. They say that you end up with your parents, and I think I did. So
I think what's really important to note nowadays is as well. So for anyone that isn't here now has adverse childhood experiences, and they're very heavily linked now when we talk about any form of trauma or trauma informed work. And this is what I mean is regards of you've been in a situation where you have experienced catastrophic ACEs
yeah,
that have massively impacted your vision of of yourself and how you see other people. And then as a result, then you find yourself going into situations with people who treat you wrong, but that could be seen as as a result, really, of going through all that trauma and not realizing that these situations were bad. And it's an all too familiar thing that is happening at the moment with a lot of people when they go through
Yeah.
their processes of these ACEs and
You don't
the people
realise
who
how bad it is until you talk about it. Oh, Sam, I don't. It's I sort of just get on with it and get on with it. But then until you start talking about it, you don't realise what you've gone through. Then I suppose.
And
So
this is why for me the podcast and the forge of what I'm building at the moment, that's why it's so important to me, is because through lived experience and analysing, assessing, as long as you're in a safe environment and you've put things in place, and you know yourself, you've put things in place and with therapy and talking and stuff, so it keeps you safe. But the power of conversation and being able to openly talk about it, that look at the fact of what things you're responsible for, and then accepting what has happened and no longer living in the past.
mm,
It allows you then to move forward. But
yeah,
it's so important that you coming on here and talking about your story, about what you're been through, is so, again, so important, because a lot of people would have been through this and they haven't had the strength, not by their own ill fortune of themselves and not feeling confident enough, but sometimes just by doing this and talking about it and acknowledging it is so difficult. And that's why, in my eyes, you're an admiration and a role model to
thank you.
millions of people. And I
Yeah,
mean that wholeheartedly, because this isn't easy to come on podcasts and talk openly, and a lot of podcasts, we all do it because we want to get the stories out there. I do in a way that I just want to be unfiltered and people tell the truth, because this is raw. This isn't scripted. This is just being in the moment of talking through it. And that's what, for me, that's what brings the emotion and the power for other people to feel empowered as well.
mhm,
You've again, now you've gone through this process of trauma all the way through ACEs, got into a relationship with
mm,
someone in Abergavenny, you had 2 children thrown out, being in, again, sheltered accommodation, and now you've gone into another relationship with another gentleman who is, again, abusing you. Is that right?
so I was on my own for a year, and I met this man that he seemed a very nice. Yeah, he was. He had a good work ethic. He was polite at the time, and all the girls liked him. So when you're younger, you look at it like that, I suppose. Um, and I got into a relationship with him, and I just was with him maybe a few months before the cracks started to show, and he'd start trying to attack me and things, and just out of nowhere for nothing. For instance, we had an Indian meal, and he had 3 pieces and I had 4, so he just threw it all against the wall. Um, Another time he held a carving knife up to my throat and said he's going to kill me. So he got me as far as the sofa bed. I was led down the sofa bed. He had the knife up to my throat. I said, if you're going to do it, just do it. And he moved the knife and I punched him I punched him in the mouth to get him away from me, sort of thing. And I remember him saying, if I've got blood on my mouth now, you want to run. And he did have blood on his mouth. I wasn't scared of him. I was obviously scared of the knife. So, of course, I had the kids. The kids wasn't there at that time. But then he smashed all the unit up, and I can remember all the glass going into my legs. Um, yeah, and I just ran out into the street to the neighbours, and that happened for quite a while. And he'd just go off and leave and spend time with other women all the time and lie and really, really mess with my mental health. Until one time he swung at me, and let's just say I fought back. I won't go into detail, but I defended myself, and he never hit me again. So, and I think it took a few months. I got all his stuff out, and I said, "That's enough. You're going." So, yeah, he was gone.
Which shows incredible strength as well.
Yeah.
It's very sad listening to it in regards to
Mm.
you going into current situations and current situations. But what I want again, your life, Marcia, has been littered with so many trials and tribulations of trauma, being let down by services. But what's really important is that what you're actually doing now. That
Yeah.
you've got another two children as well. No? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. My little ones. Yeah. One's bless him, very intelligent. He's being assessed for autism at the moment, so I'm learning a lot about that in the
Yeah.
process as well. So, but he's yeah, they make me proud,
And
even though they drive me up the
oh,
wall.
yeah, many kids do.
Yeah.
So what were you? So we're coming for again when we look back with your sister. That's obviously very very difficult. I know
Yeah.
you've spoke about how
Yeah.
you feel as if you hold yourself responsible sometimes for
Yeah.
the current state that your sister's in.
Yeah.
Which is that self kind of guilt then that you've been through. But if you look at where you are now and what you went through. It's really is an incredible story of strength, determination, perseverance, of coming out on top and things. So,
Yeah.
what are you currently doing now? Was there anything else that happened after that, or did things start turn in regards of you understanding where
No,
you were?
up until about 5 years ago was my last relationship. It was um volatile then,
Yeah,
controlling. Um, I started to record the person because he was following me, and but it turned out that he was the one that was going with somebody else, not me. Um, Recording me, just to let the people out there that are going through a relationship right now that is volatile, then domestic violence. That he tried to monitor track my. He bought me a Samsung watch, my arm, and he's opened the box before me and tried to get it to track me so he can follow me on there. He tried to control me with the lights. He had them on the Alexa, so he'd go to work and turn the lights off at 10 o'clock. I had to be in bed by 10 o'clock. Not that I would listen, but he did try. He kept the bathroom light up to the ceiling because he's 6'6" and I couldn't reach it. So I'd have to use a smart light, which would tell his phone when I've turned the lights off and gone to bed while he was in work. I couldn't call anyone. I couldn't go anywhere. He followed me to the gym. The only place he wouldn't follow me to was the boxing gym. And because he knew there was a lot of other men there and I was safe. That was that was and is my safe place now, you know? So I think some people are
yes.
scared to walk into a boxing gym, but it's a safe place for me. So
Yeah, so in regards of now of where you are, so I think that's something really important now as we come towards the end of the podcast as well, is
right,
looking
okay.
at where you've actually come from, and then what was the turning point of what are you actually doing now for your mental health, what's
Yeah.
keeping you in check and stuff. So what was the turning point? What was the point where you just thought, right, I need to start looking at, is it relationships? Do I need to start looking at therapy? Do I need to start looking at because now looking at where you are now, it's a total parallel to where you was before. But
Yeah,
was there any turning points?
there was a turning point. My children, I thought I've got to start doing this for them and for myself as well. I've got to start being selfish. I've got to start looking after myself. And for anybody that's listening, I say they've taken years of your life. Don't let them take any more. You've got to put yourself first. You have to. And there is happiness. Happiness I find taking my boy swimming. Playing ball in the pool, no worries, just all outside. Swimming, go under the water, have a good swim. I find these little things to help me cope. Um, I suppose just, and the job that I'm in now is the place I like to be all the time. So
Yeah, and what are you
when I
doing? What are you
can,
doing now?
I'm an
Yeah,
engagement
well, yeah,
officer. I'm an engagement officer in the local community. and it's
Amazing.
helping people to become active again, active well-being. And that haven't been active for a while and are struggling to get back into fitness or even going out for a walk or talking to others, socialising. We um, signpost to employment and volunteering or groups that might help people. And hopefully I'll be starting to walk around Bring Back so people can talk about what they want to talk about, even if it's, I don't know, whatever they want to talk about that they don't feel they can talk about at home, sort of thing. So because some things you want to talk about, you won't talk about at home to your close ones, will you? So maybe, there's lots of different branch offs to my job. I do everything, I think. So try and help everyone and anyone that needs it,
But
really.
it, it makes you an incredible person at your job, though, and to
Yeah,
go into that role, I think this is why for me, this is why this story is incredible, because so many people they go through their maces, they become what they were, they
yeah,
believe what they were, they're stuck in that kind of situation. Now, you were lucky enough to realize that I have got the strength to move forward. I'm now going to use my experiences to become not just a better version for better mother, because you don't want to replicate what you've seen of your mother, but you want to become a better version of yourself, so you could be this person who's independent for the children, for future versions, and to give that to other people as well. And that's admirable. That is so admirable, because
thank you, Sam.
no, I mean that. I I really, really do. And what I want to just to give a bit of realization and reflection
Yeah,
as we come towards the end as well. So
yeah.
looking back now at, I just want to ask things. Looking back at the situation with your mother, how do you now, as an adult, being in a situation as you are now, reflect back on that experience with your mother and the feelings of your mother?
I think my children say to me, Mum, how can you speak to her? Because I've seen her maybe 3 times. I went to see her when we thought she was dying in the Royal Liverpool Hospital 2 years ago. I hadn't seen her for 20 years at that point. I'm on two minds. I think she's a woman that needed help, that needed intervention, that shouldn't have had children in the first place. And the services should have seen that. Because obviously when you get into that state of mind, there has to be support. So you can't bring children into the situation. Um, and as the child that went through it with her, um, I think what a nasty, horrible, manipulative person to do that to somebody. But then from a professional side, I think they should have been there. The services should have been there. They should have intervened better than they should have. Not just for the sake of her, but for the sake of the two children, myself and my sister, that came into the situation and had to suffer the consequences of it, you know?
Is there anything that you would like to say to both past and present social services about not repeating the situation that you were in?
I've got four words. Listen to the children. Listen to the children.
I think they're powerful. I think they're powerful in itself. I think that says it all. Is that you were ignored, you were neglected, you wasn't heard, and as a result, that happened. And yeah, I think that's a very, very strong message. And then finally, then I want to just reflect then on that, is in regards of what taking yourself from that situation. Have you got any, looking at an adult as a parent now? Have you got any reflections on that relationship with dad, of what he done and what he could have done differently, or just to get your understanding of that?
My father was so many times, looking back, so many times he could have saved us. So many times he was neglectful. So many times he's watched me and my sister suffer and did nothing from the child's point of view. And I think I hate him for that. And now he's got dementia and he gets nasty with me sometimes, like accuses me of stealing his money and everything else. And the little girl just wants to say, what do you mean? Look at everything you did to us. Look what you did to me and my sister. But then the professional side of me wants to say, somebody should have helped him. Somebody should have taken those children away. and giving him the right treatment. He was an alcoholic because of his mental health issues. He was covering it all up, but he just didn't have the knowledge to know what was going on in his head, because only now our generation are understanding mental health. Then it was all day backwards. That's not my words. That's what I've heard growing up. And they're not. They need support because everybody's different and they shouldn't have to be the same. But my dad needed the support, and he shouldn't have been in charge of 2 children. We left anywhere and everywhere and didn't protect. So
Yeah, this has definitely been a story of systematic failings that could have ended in absolute tragedy of 2 children losing their lives due to being left and failed continuously from a social services perspective. And I really do hope that for people who listen to this, who are social workers who've been in them situations, that please learn from the mistakes of your previous peers in your situations, because your actions can sometimes be, or lack of actions can sometimes lead to the suffering, unnecessary suffering of families and children. And this is as much as this is a success story in regards of someone going through a horrific instance and coming out the person you are now, there's a lot of people who don't get to say that. And that will continue going forward. As much as I would imagine social services has improved over the years, there are still thousands of cases which this is happening as well.
absolutely. But I'm thinking, I hope to God now, right, Sam, everybody saying that all this stuff is coming out about, what's his word? Epstein? No?
Yeah, Epstein and Mandelson at the moment.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the names. Epstein, Mandelson. All this stuff coming out about them. I'm from an era where it was all shut up. The times I was in a place where I had to stand up to a man, and then if you tell somebody about it, oh, don't be so silly, he's just messing. It's just like pass it off. I'm hoping we are now coming into a place, and exactly the same happened to my sister. She couldn't speak up. If I wasn't there, she couldn't. I'd speak for her, but I wasn't always there. And things happened to her of a sexual nature, and things happened to me of a sexual nature. But I'm hoping now that 2026 is a time where we're going to bring these bastards out, excuse my French, and make it known it shouldn't be allowed, So.
Yeah, 100%. It's what I always like doing when we come to close in these podcasts, is these episodes, is for the person who's telling their story to just give some words of advice to anyone who's been through them scenarios to take strength from you. So what would you like to say to someone who has been through your situations, who's taken some courage from what your story has shown, or they see similarities in their story? What would you like to say to them now to give them the strength in order to start their journey and to get that strength just to move forward?
Find the right therapist, because sometimes you come across a therapist and they're always good ones. Don't automatically think that just because they're a therapist they're going to be good. Find the one right for you, and just don't let them take any more of your life. You've got to be good to yourself. You have to be selfish and just look after yourself. Be yourself number one. That's it.
I couldn't have said that any better myself, Marcia. You have been an absolutely...
Oh, go. One more, right? There's one more, and I'm going to swear. Don't let the bastards grind you down.
That's a really good way. Also, don't let the bastards grind down. I love that. 100%. Marcia, you have been an absolutely incredible guest. I know that before you wanted to come on, you were incredibly nervous about coming on. Your story is remarkable. It shows tragedy in so many elements, but it also shows total heroic strength, and I've said it lots of times during this podcast, admiration for what you have been through. And I know that this episode is going to help so many people, because they're going to feel as if they have been mistreated, and because they have been mistreated, they are defined by what has happened around them. Well, if you've listened to this podcast, you are not defined what has happened to you, because Marcia has come through absolute hell, both her and her sister, and she is trying to use her experiences to better herself, her family, and for others around her, and that should be rewarded endlessly. I say it again, you've been an incredible guest, and I really, really do hope that everything you go on to complete going forward is you deserve all the success needed. And if I can do anything for you going forward to help with that, I'm more than happy to. And I wish you, your family, all the happiness, success, and love and admiration going forward.
Thank you, Sam. And you make sure you keep doing this good work, 'cause you're doing a great thing, giving people like myself a platform to speak about things like this that people don't get to hear, and they need to hear.
This is why the podcast for me is my most important work, is being able to come on, talk to people like yourself, giving them the platform to speak and to allow people to feel stronger than ever, to feel the strength, and together as one joint community, however big that is, we've only got to help one person during that community to feel the strength going forward. And together then we can start. It's not just breaking the stigma around mental health, it's about being able for us to feel a more caring, loving race of people who won't look down on each other and instead pick each other up. But yeah, thank you so much. And what I just want to say is that this has been the Forge Within podcast. This is where we have real people like Marcia coming on every single week telling stories about their mental health. And yeah, it's just been an incredible episode. And thank you so much, everyone. And next week, same time next week, we'll have guests coming right through. We're booked now all the way through until October, which is incredible. Lots of different stories, different backgrounds, and I really, really do look forward to speaking to you all in next week's episode. But for this week, thank you so much. And goodbye, and I shall see you all next week. And thank you, Marcia.
Thank you very much. Bye for now.
No,
thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you, everyone. See you all next week. Bye now. Bye. 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 Bye.